you, by the way.
I've had so much fun. There are so many elements of this that have blown my mind. First off, I didn't realize that there were going to be things about estate planning that I already enjoyed doing. I like to throw parties, like themed parties. My little kids, I've always thrown very elaborate parties for their birthdays. And
I could totally see that, by the way. You would be great at that.
it's fun. I let them pick any kind of theme they want. Like one year, my little guy said he wanted a red party. So I was like, oh, we need a vehicle for that. We'll have an
A
apple party.
red party. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
inventive.
So we had an apple party and everything was apple themed.
Yeah.
So now my seminars, everything is themed. I'm trying a tricky one, 2 days before Thanksgiving. And it's basically, it's a daycare seminar again. And the
Yes.
idea is make sure that you know how to navigate conversations over the holidays about who's going to get grandma's gravy boat.
That's a
And
good one.
I know holidays risky, like we're going to see. We'll see.
You know what I have found, much to my surprise, when I started practicing about 10 years ago, I always thought as well, I'm not going to get any business over the holidays. And actually, you get a lot of business over the holidays because you get people who pick up the phone and call like the day after Thanksgiving or the day after Christmas, after they've been with their family. And they're like, now is the time. It comes up over the holidays.
Well, I'm hoping that it's not, that the lead in there isn't too presumptuous, like while you're with your family, talk about my business.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
no, I know. It's okay. It's a good marketing idea. I think Lainey would recommend it as well.
okay.
Um, oh yeah. So we're just doing this. You have been like a shiny success, and I feel like you've just taken what we've given you and just run with it. And
Thank
so to
you.
the well, I'm very impressed. I really, really am. So we
Thank
just
you.
wanted to we want to share your success to the extent that you feel comfortable talking about it. And so I did have some questions. I don't know if you had a chance to look through. Yes, I'm sure that you did. Yes, I've got mine as well. Yeah, so we're just going to take little bits and pieces of this, and so I just want to hear your story from beginning to end.
Sure.
Very very conversational. We'll just start with, where are you based? What kind of law did you practice before 2HLL? How long have you been doing estate planning? What inspired you? Let's just start with that.
Okay, great. I am based in the greater Cincinnati area, so I'm licensed in Kentucky and Ohio. A lot of attorneys here are dual licensed because we do work across the river. I live in Kentucky. I live in a little neighborhood in Kentucky, in Covington, Kentucky, and it's full of millennial moms. And so when I started looking at estate planning, I thought, it interests me because I want to make sure that my children are cared for. So I'm sure it would interest them as well. But I think they probably felt like they were too young to actually pursue that avenue. But then as I am using the tools that I've picked up in the program to educate them, they're realizing that they're not too young, that this is exactly what they should be doing. So
Yes.
it's sort of become a lifestyle brand too. One daycare mom tells the next daycare mom, and then she wants to do the same thing, and same with the neighbors. And it just kind of spreads because it feels like the responsible thing to do, and it is.
It is, and I think the thing that stops so many people is they just don't know where to start. They don't know what they're supposed to be asking for, they don't know how much it's supposed to cost. And that's why word of mouth, I think with estate planning works, it just works so well because, this isn't like a PI firm where like, you see a billboard or something. You're going to be asking your friends and your family, has anyone done a will? Who did you work with?
Right. And the seminar setup works so well. The seminar format works well because a lot of the people that I'm meeting with, they know they want to know more, but they're not confident enough to go out and seek an attorney on their own. They're not sure that they have the assets for a will or a trust. They definitely aren't thinking trust.
Right.
until they learn the things that they can do and what a powerful tool a trust can be to care for young children. So for millennial moms, it's something that's, really surprising to them and something that they want to invest in. I'm batting 1,000 right now. I have closed every single client that I have done a peace of mind planning session with. Um,
It's remarkable, Allie. We want to hear all about that, by the way, because there's going to be people listening to this who are like, "What is her secret?" So, yeah, tell us about that because you were brand new to estate planning. Is that right?
yeah, so the extent of my estate planning experience was drafting the one-off boilerplate will for somebody. I was a solo practitioner. Eventually, I got to focus in criminal defense, but when I started, I was kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. So until I really moved into the direction of criminal defense, I would take what I could get. But I was never doing any kind of estate planning like this. This is a completely different ballgame. Um, the First off, I feel like at some point somebody on the coaching team is going to say, "All right, it's time to raise your prices." If
Yes.
you're-
Well,
um,
yes, we say you want to close at least 70%, and if you're doing more, you should probably raise your fees.
Right. And but the thing is, I've been pricing them out at 4,000 for a trust. And for the market here, that's on the high end. But I have been giving a discount of 500 or $1,000 depending upon where I get the lead. And so for the daycare, I act like the daycare suggests that I give $1,000. So then the daycare lets me come back. So I suggest that the daycare,
Very smart.
yeah,
Yes.
lets me do it. And then I also mention leaving something to the daycare in the design session. That's kind of part of the deal.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I really like the daycare giving it's a sorry, I'm like stumbling over my words. It's a benefit to them if they can go back to their people and say, "We have an estate planning attorney who's coming in, and if you work with her, she's going to give you a special discount that nobody else gets."
Exactly. And then I highlight that I send out a flyer, the daycare, basically, they're offering an additional free service to their parents. And it's something that they can do where the parents already are. They can come and pick up their kids from daycare and stay with their trusted childcare provider and just come into a separate room with me. I have my little cream colored rolly bag and my
Yes.
little projector.
Oh,
I
believe me, I did all that too.
and I followed everything to the letter. The slideshow is a completely stolen slideshow with changed colors and photos.
Well,
It's
this
right
is
out of
what I'm
material.
okay, so amazing. So everyone who's listening, she was brand new to estate planning. How did you start to learn the law and feel comfortable speaking about estate planning? Because this is a roadblock that so many of our members have, and it's like the chicken and the egg. And I had the same roadblock. I knew I needed business, and I was willing to go out and host workshops in New York City for moms groups and dads groups like you were doing. But I was so new to estate planning that I felt like, well, am I allowed to go speak about this? And
Right.
what I found was that I have to get over this. I've got to get out there and start teaching what I know. But how did you get over that?
Yeah, imposter syndrome. Well, that was one of my biggest fears. When I first started 2HLL, I was most worried that I wouldn't have a strong enough grasp of the law, not only just to speak on it, but to competently advise clients. I found that when starting from the beginning of the materials and actually working through the modules, if I worked through all of the content as I went through, I was getting a baseline for everything that I needed. And it taught me what to go learn more about, right? So then I could go and find continuing legal education courses and just really deep dive into the Clayton election and deep dive into Q-tip and make sure that I could competently advise people. And also it helps that unlike criminal defense, this isn't happening in real time.
Right.
In a courtroom, I'm speaking to a jury or to a judge, and the mistakes are happening in real time. In estate planning, I can say to my client, that's a great question. Let me look into that more. I think there's a way that we can draft for that. Allow me to go and learn more about that so we do it the right way. And my clients are actually pleased to hear that. I think that it builds a lot of trust and a personal relationship because they know that I'm not just giving them boilerplate work, that it's bespoke work.
It is bespoke, and I think that it says a lot when when you can say, "I need to go research that," other than just pretending that you know something you don't know, which, we all have the same fear. What if a client asks us something we don't know? And for any attorneys listening, if you don't know something, it's okay. The right answer is you have to go research it. But the real time thing I think is important. I try to tell our members in the community, someone's going to hire you at the peace of mind planning session, and that's a big hurdle to get over, your first one. But then there's going to be a couple of weeks between that and the design meeting. And so then you can go kind of get your ducks in a row for the design meeting. And then there's going to be a couple of weeks before the signing. And so you can get your ducks in a row. So just get started with that first peace of mind.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the biggest things for me, did I ever tell you the story about my first seminar and how I tried to weasel my way out of like public questions?
No, I don't think I heard this.
So I had it's my the estate planning blueprint. It was my first seminar, and surprisingly 12 people showed up. That moment when the first person walked in the door and it was a parent that I didn't know, I was like, oh, this is gonna work, but this is really scary.
It's scary.
Yeah. And then 12 people were in the room, and I knew a couple. I had a couple plants in there. I had a friend of mine who was a plant. And she was supposed to help if I needed any intervention.
Yes,
Um,
very smart. A plant. I love it.
so at the end of it, I went 45 minutes exactly, and I said, okay, so I have Ashley in the back, who is my neighbor. She's a nurse. She's not my assistant at all. I said, I have Ashley, my assistant, in the back. If you would like to sign up for a peace of mind planning session, and I saved all the time to push them to it. Um, and and then while you're signing up for those, if anybody has any questions, come on up, and I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one. Well,
Oh,
nobody moved. And a
yeah.
guy just pops out a question, and then the next one has a question, and the next one has a question. So I did 15 minutes of open forum questions on estate planning at my first ever seminar.
And every question you're thinking, oh my God, I hope I know the answer to this. Yeah,
I,
that's so painful. Was there any that you didn't know the answer?
the only one I knew I could address everything. I had enough material. I'd gone through enough material to address every question, except for the one that my plant asked. And she asked me the definition of something. And I was like, I don't even remember how I answered. I wish I had it recorded, but I squeaked around it, but it was just a simple definition of a term and I didn't know it. So
Oh,
obviously I then later told her that she's going to have to sign up for her peace of mind plans.
yes, definitely.
She owes me.
I love how the plant is the one person who asked you a question that you didn't know how to address, but that we tend to get the same questions at the end anyway. So, but the questions that came in, even though you're relatively new, you were able to answer. Were they basically just, very simple questions?
Yeah, different things. Questions about a children's trust, questions about, they were really drafting questions. A lot of them were drafting questions like, can you make this happen? Can you do that?
Mm, yeah.
Um, people always want to know about taxable estates, and they want to
Mhm.
know about, their individual states. And, it's, it is kind of the same thing over and over. And it turns out that the millennial parents in the, now I've started hosting the actual design meetings. And in the design meetings that I've had so far, the millennial parents have wanted basically the exact same things. They
Mm.
want trusts, they want a single trust, they want children's trust,
Yep.
and they want a pot trust, and they want it age tiered.
Yes.
They all want the same thing so far.
That's what you're going to find. Every plan is definitely tailored, and the counseling is tailored. Having said that, there's only so many different options, and you do find a lot of young parents, they want to, and older people as well, but they want that revocable living trust for the probate avoidance. and then a separate testamentary trust for the kids, whether that's a lifetime trust or staggered. These are the things that we teach in the course. But yes, you'll find that a lot of people do kind of have a very similar plan, and that just makes it even easier for you to sort of automate your practice. But the design of the plan is very tailored. Is that when you found that you really got to dig in and get to know your clients a little bit better during that design meeting?
Yes, but I will say I was not surprised at I wanted to practice with my software. And so I use True State and it's month to month. So I could make a smaller investment and learn off of it. By the way, it got better for me as I've
Nice.
been drafting. But I wanted to kind of mess around with what we had talked about in the peace of mind planning session and kind of drafted things that I thought that they were probably going to want. And they were pretty much spot on. So I was able to sort of glean what they were going to need just based on their concerns the questions they asked me in the PMPS.
Yes. Yeah, that's the whole point. We get the questionnaire because we want to start getting a sense for what they might need help with. I never, predetermine what someone wants or needs. But yeah, you can start to get a sense for what kinds of things are going to come up in the peace of mind planning session, and then do a really big deep dive when you design. So did you separated out the design and the peace of mind, is that right?
Absolutely. I I used so for my seminar and my peace of mind planning session, they are almost identical. So the seminar is a slideshow and
Yeah.
goes all the way through what is a will, what is a trust, what is an estate, all the way through. Talks about I start off with my family and then I talk about those things and then I spend some time at the end just actually driving people to the peace of mind planning session. Now, the peace of mind planning session itself, if somebody from one of those seminars shows up there, it means one parent's already sold.
Mhm.
So basically, they want their spouse to hear from my mouth what I just told them at the seminar.
Yep.
So I go through an abbreviated version of that. I have been using a hypothetical math problem instead of going through line by line their
Mhm.
actual assets. I've been using the Martins, who have $1 million estate, which is right about where most of these families at these particular higher end daycares
Daycares.
are right now. And so I can walk through the Martins estate in that PowerPoint, and they kind of can see where that's similar to them. And then I say, I give them the Martin's pitfalls, everything that happens to them and how much they spend in probate. And then I say, for the price of about 2 mortgage payments, the Martins could have avoided this and purchased planning specific to them. So then I just told them a number without them realizing that I told them a number.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like now
Yes.
they're in the ballpark. And so they're like, oh, well, my mortgage payment is this. I'm probably, looking at this for the whole plan. And then at the end of it, when I quote fees, right now I've given, like I said, 1,000 or a $500 discount, depending upon how they got to me. And then I
Yep.
let them pay it in 2 installments, one immediately on the spot. And the next one has to happen the day of our design meeting.
Oh, the day of the design. And does the design have to happen within 30 days?
Yeah, so I basically set them up on my track is I try to keep it about a month is what I tell them up
Mhm.
front. Like we want this to happen all in about 1 month.
Yep.
So yeah, the design meeting is scheduled at the peace of mind planning session. And then the signing ceremony is scheduled at the design meeting.
Yes. So that's another good tip, everyone. A 3 meeting process is what we like, the initial consultation, and then a separate design, and then a separate signing. And it is good to get all of those on the calendar as soon as possible, because then there's no hedging in terms of payment, and there's no hedging in terms of anything. It's just, this is the schedule. It's going to be signed in a month.
Then I also know exactly how much time I have to figure out the next step if I'm not if I'm not confident in where I'm going next.
Yes.
I'm creating a summary document right now, just on Canva, and I really wanted a more visual representation of exactly what it is that the decisions that they've made. So I'm kind of putting that together right now, and I found some examples on Canva that are just, sort of flow charts that I'm working with.
Oh yeah, it's all out there. You can make the coolest stuff, and I love talking about this with this estate planning concepts because, you know, our community and our clients need to be educated before they will buy, before they'll understand, before they get excited about it. And that's just a hurdle that we have to get over. But in some ways, it's a kind of a fun hurdle because there's so many interesting, unique ways, especially today, to teach our community why these things matter and why it benefits someone who doesn't have a ton of money just as much as it benefits someone who does. It's all about education. And I think that attorneys who are open to welcoming that and just knowing, you know, doing the workshops is not some kind of a burden. You might think that it is, and in the beginning it feels like it because you're so uncomfortable, and I was so uncomfortable. But now I see it as like, oh my God, I'm always going to be able to get business by hosting workshops, you know?
Trial attorneys who are ready to get out of the courtroom because they're tired of contentious litigation or opposing counsel or being in front of the judge. You're just talking to a jury. You're just giving opening statement. You are standing up and presenting opening statement, and then you take a little time to hear some questions. It's or anybody who is coming from an education background. I have some background in post-secondary education as well. It's it's a classroom. You're just teaching a class. And it was a very relaxing feeling for me once I launched into it. There are 12 strangers sitting there, but I launch into it and it just flows because I practiced, I knew what I was talking about, and I'd watched the materials religiously for 2 months straight.
You really put in the time. Yeah, you don't have to know everything is what I tell our members as well. And you're not going to know everything, and you don't have to know everything to get started. I think that, you know, lawyers were so cautious and we care so much about doing a good job for our clients that sometimes we just kind of get stuck. And the learning oftentimes comes from the serving the clients. And so you just kind of have to get started. But it's definitely a little bit scary in the beginning.
No one, when they start practicing law, is an expert in their subject matter, and
Nobody.
or any profession. So, having these building blocks to start is invaluable. There's no way I could have put this together. I've been doing this for 4 months. There's no way I could have put this together myself. This isn't just an estate planning practice. It's a brand. It's
Yes, you're
directed.
building your own brand.
Absolutely. And it's recognizable. And my BNI group, that just that piece of information is so important. You cannot ignore the BNI aspect. It's your little family. That's the first seminar you give is
Yes.
your BNI group. And in fact, I created the PowerPoint for the BNI 10-minute presentation. And that's the one that I just built that
Yep.
up and used that for my seminar. It's the same presentation over and over and over.
Yes.
And now
Yes.
I've given it 12 times.
Right, that's right. Once you get one presentation or one set of slides that works, you don't have to recreate the wheel. Although I like your idea of kind of mixing it up. Maybe today we kind of come at it from a perspective of divorce, and maybe today we come at it from a perspective of what happens with your retirement. There's all different angles. But, you know, the driver is always to a peace of mind planning session. And I think that's the thing that most lawyers miss is that they feel like it's salesy and they don't understand you can't just give the content. You've got to get people to take action.
Absolutely. Putting setting aside time at the end of the seminar to talk about the peace of mind planning session. I have a QR code up. I talk about how you can schedule it. I explain my calendaring page. I spend time telling people why it's important that they talk to somebody one-on-one. And
Mm.
then I punctuate that by saying, here's how you know that you're hiring the right attorney. It doesn't have to be me. I'm alluding to the fact that it doesn't have to be me, but is it somebody who you're comfortable with? Is it somebody who this is their primary field? Is it
Mhm.
somebody who, all these little factors, which by the way are stolen directly from one of the slides in the materials. uh, but I
That's me.
highlight that, and then I don't have to tell them that I'm that person. they get that. They get the point.
They get it. That's exactly how I feel. I say the same thing. You've got your choice of lawyers, and if we're a great fit, great. And if not, that's fine too. But this is what we offer. And I find that just simply that openness and that kind of putting it back in terms of, you get to decide here. We're not pushing anything onto you, but I have a pretty good feeling that you're going to like what we have to offer. I think once you get that confidence, then you're in good shape.
When I was making the decision whether or not to go with the 2HLL program, I was on a call with you. It was a group call. There were a handful of people on it. And that was exactly what you did. You presented the value, you laid out the value, and you said, here's what you're going to get. Here's the value. Here's what you're going to get. Here's the value. And then you said, and this is the price. So take it or leave it. Like, if you're interested, then let's move forward. If you're not interested, that's okay. But other people will be. And I was like, oh, that's it. It's the whole thing's a math problem. If you can show the value, if you can show what they're going to save now that they have this education, if they move forward, then it's silly not to move forward. If they're interested in planning at all, then they see that from the math problem. And that actually applies to every business. I have a friend who's a loan officer in my BNI group, and she was telling me that she's having a hard time getting her clients to pay her value. That basically by the time she gets them down to the number that they need, she's losing money. And I said, well, what's happening? What are you doing differently? And she said that her former boss, somebody who's now a competitor, that how did she say it? I wrote it down. He says something is a tax credit, and then he makes it look like it's a lender credit, and then it disappears at the closing, and then he doesn't explain that. Then the buyer says, what happened to that credit? And he's like, oh, well, that got eaten up at the blah, 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 sign here. So I said, well, then tell that story. Tell that story to your clients. Say, this is what other loan officers do. I did this.
Right. And I'm not doing that.
And I'm not doing that. So show your value. I'm giving you this, this, and this. Other loan officers are going to give you this, this, and this. So that credit that you think you're getting with them, you're not going to. It's the same thing. It applies across basically any sales industry where you're trying to save somebody money ultimately.
Yes, you just have to show them that it's not about the price, it's about the value. And if they don't understand the value, it's because you didn't do a good enough job explaining it. And this is why the lawyers in our community, there's no trick with 2HLL. I get a lot, does it work? And I'm like, I don't like that word, because we're not teaching you how to trick anyone. We're just simply, saying, see what probate looks like in your state. There's going to be some downsides. Make sure that you point those out to your clients, because they don't know them. It's not because you're trying to push them into something. It's because they're coming to the office just not having any real sense for what's needed. So the education piece is just so incredibly important. And then just exactly what I say on my sales calls, you've got to show people that it's going to cost them more if they don't hire you. And everyone's coming in thinking, I can either not do an estate plan and that's going to cost me $0, or I can do an estate plan and that's going to be $5,000. And there's like no difference between the two. They don't realize they're coming in a much worse spot than just $0. They've got the state's default plan, and that's going to be way more expensive than the $5,000. So that's it. That's it right there.
Right. The tell a room full of people that a will has to go through probate court, and then ask how many people knew that.
Yes.
It's
Did you
shocking.
do that?
It's shocking. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And multiple people were like, I thought the point was that it didn't have to. And I was like, no, that is actually that's the definition of probate court. People can't believe it. They're like, oh, I thought my will was fine.
The assumption isn't that the whole point of doing a will? So I can avoid all the court and the hassle. I thought that getting a will meant that things are going to be less expensive. No, it's going to have to go through probate. And so that one nugget pushes a lot of people to a trust. And we tell them it's up to you to choose. I think it's very important. And I know you do this as well. It's going to work better if they say, I want this for this reason, as opposed to you just saying, do a will, it's only $2,000.
Right. Well, and I've had several people ask me, like, why don't people know this? Why don't people know this? And I'm like, well, first off, this has always been there. This has been available. It's just that this is more difficult to learn, that when you're actually learning estate planning at this level, you have to put in a lot more time and effort. Attorneys have been drafting boilerplate wills since the beginning of time, and then families don't realize that they go around and probate it on the back end. I mean, that is one way to do it. It is
That's a
absolutely
business,
one way to
it's a
do it.
business model. Get
Yes.
all the wills and then probate them 20 years from now. Yeah.
Right. And that's been the traditional model. And if there are attorneys out there who want to educate themselves to the point where they can educate the public and change that and give better value to their clients, then I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that movement, as opposed to maybe not my clients not really understanding what they've done with the planning that I've created. I want them to know, I want full transparency with my clients, because I want them to feel safe and protected. And then once they pass away, I want their families to feel that value as well.
Yes, you're exactly right. You want to be a part of the group of communities who feels that education in your community is very, very important so that everyone can make good decisions for themselves and their families. And now you're going to be a leader. You're going to be seen as a leader in your community. Not just because you're an attorney, but because you're taking the time to go out there in the community, to go to the different daycares. If you're working with entrepreneurs, you go to the Chamber of Commerce. If you're working with elderly people, you go to a nursing home, right? You pick your people, but then you go and you represent yourself as, I'm here. I have information that you might be interested in. I can help with the solution, but it's not a selling thing. It's something very different. And I think that you've really caught on to that, because once you get good at that, you don't have to run Google ads, because the people who live next door already know who you are and they like you. And I'm in New York City, right? So it doesn't just work in small areas.
Yeah. Yeah. I have clients who are reaching out, like two and three people removed from somebody in my BNI group.
Yeah.
So like I have a peace of mind planning session scheduled with a young lady whose name I do not know, and I cannot track. I do not know why she's been referred to me yet. So I'm going to reach out to her and say, hey, really looking forward to her session.
Well, you should have it on your intake. Where did you hear about me? You should.
As of now, she has only signed up for the peace of mind planning session. And so
Oh,
she's,
okay. So she
she's
hasn't filled
just
it out yet.
received, yeah, she's received the automated email that goes out with that and says, like, here's your my legacy profile. Here's your legacy profile. Fill out your legacy profile. But I want to reach out to her in advance and make sure that, we're secured for the meeting and that she's confident about what she's getting when she gets there.
Yes. But I'm sure what happened is a friend of a friend of a friend told someone about you, and now your link is going around. And so you
Yeah.
might start to get, you probably will get meetings just popping up like, oh, Jane Smith and her husband Bob just booked a PMPS. It says this person referred her. And oftentimes what starts to happen is you don't even know the person who referred. Like, you're just like, I don't know who any of these people are, but here she is in my office. Great.
That's what she has to be, because everybody else is telling me, you know what I mean? Like everybody else is saying like, oh, I referred you so and so, or I'm getting like BNI slips like, oh, this referral and that. I have never seen this name. So it's so exciting.
It's very exciting. Okay, so tell us a little bit, if there's people who are listening to this who are thinking, first of all, tell us how, and you've already kind of alluded to this, but how did 2HLL help? And how did you pick our program over some of the others that are out there?
Um, First off, I don't even want people to realize there are other programs out there. Don't waste your time. I researched it like crazy. Before joining 2HLL, I knew that I wanted to, I was working in post-secondary education. I had previously been in law as a criminal defense attorney. I knew that I wanted to use my law degree. I knew that that's where I wanted to land, right? I wanted my kids to say my mom's an attorney. I worked hard for it. I value it. I didn't want to be in post-secondary education unless I really needed to, right? So, I shopped the programs. I studied, I looked into everything that was available, and there was a thread of honesty in the 2HLL materials that made me very confident in the product and the service. There was something about the transparency of delivery that for one, like I've said before, in just a call with you, the transparency of delivery about what the program offers and what you're going to get out of it, the value was obvious to me. It was very obvious, and there was no pressure. It was, do you see this value and is it of interest to you? If so, I promise I'll deliver. And 100% the program has delivered. I got a little bit early access because when I signed on, it was right at the beginning. I just missed summer camp, which was, I guess, back in July. And so I was given a little bit of a sneak peek to some of the materials, so I would have stuff to look at. Well, I went crazy. I went through every single bit of it. I was on a mission. And so by the time my cohort started, I had been through all the materials and was already booking, I already had clients. And that was
Because
just,
you took it and ran with it. It didn't just happen. You watched every video. You looked at every resource.
I did it I followed the modules in real time. So when I watched the Calendly, I sat down and created my Calendly. When I watched, how to create your PMPS, I sat down and created my PMPS. When it said join BNI, I joined BNI. I could do that because I was going through, at my own pace. But the thing is, it works in the order it's delivered.
Mhm.
I was very satisfied with my decision. I definitely wouldn't go any other way. This is a business in a package. And if you follow it right and you do it right, it absolutely will get you where you want to be.
And it gives you a roadmap for the rest of your career, and just it's kind of a safety net. Like I think once you've dialed this in and you've done a few and you're like, oh, now this works. Yeah, I feel very confident saying and very reassuring knowing I'm always going to be able to do estate planning for people if I need revenue. The other thing I wanted to say about what you said too was that your kids now look at you, you're an attorney. Well, now they're also looking at you as a business owner.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought about that. Oh, I had this highlight moment. So after I did my first 3 peace of mind planning sessions back to back to back on a Friday. By the way, I learned that lesson the hard way. Don't do that.
Oh,
um,
I'd be so drained by the end. Oh,
I couldn't remember if I had said the same thing over and over or not. Oh, it was, don't do that. It worked. I got out of the last one and I called my husband, who also is a business owner. He owns a very successful graphic design firm that's been around for 20 years. And I said, well, it worked. And he was like, oh, did you book one? And I said, no, I booked 3. And he couldn't believe it. He was like, what? He was like, I was like, it worked.
I
It,
went out and I did it.
I did it. It worked. I followed the map. I did everything that I needed to. I learned what I needed to learn to be able to speak with authority. And all of my clients were confident. And
And then you went and closed like 5 for 5. What did he say about that?
he's 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 very proud.
I'm
I didn't
sure.
know that I was worried about whether he was proud of me or not, but it feels really good, especially with him being a successful business owner, to be able to, look at me and say, "Wow, you're really making this work. This is, I'm still I'm still running a nonprofit post-secondary education institution,
Hmm.
and I am doing this on weekends, evenings, and Fridays. Right now, that's when I'm doing 2HLL.
So
So,
it didn't just land in your lap, which is I want to point that out to people. Allie didn't just get this success just because, right? You put in quite a bit of work.
oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
takes work.
Yeah.
But anything that an attorney is doing for a client should. We have a responsibility to, be diligent in our study and to know what we're talking about. So anything is going to take work, but the materials are there and the roadmap is there. So it cuts, I don't know, 3 years of time out of getting to where you need to be.
Where do you think you would be if you hadn't taken the course? That's something else. So let's paint a picture of how this would have looked if you hadn't taken a program or if you'd
Well,
taken a subpar program.
well, I can tell you, I was on Indeed looking to see if I could find some sort of career shift that was going to allow me to work remotely. And a friend of mine was like, what are you doing? You're an attorney. Just go back and be an attorney. And I was like, that's not remote. I'm in the courtroom. I'm, there's a very specific uh, type of day for an attorney who's, in the courtroom. I was like, that's not a remote job at all. So then I thought, but wait a minute, is there something else? And then I started researching, and when I found this, everything about 2HLL was a perfect fit for me. The kind of event hosting portion with the seminar, I enjoy doing that. The public speaking, I enjoy doing that. I know everybody doesn't, but it works great for me.
And if you don't enjoy it now, if everyone who's listening, you might enjoy it later. I didn't in the beginning, but I do now. So yeah, but you're a natural.
If you thank you. If you enjoy educating people, I did a little stint as a family attorney, right? I did a little bit of domestic relations, family law for a while. And the second that I was able to get out of it, I was elated, because at the end of a divorce, if both parties are a little bit mad, both attorneys did a good job. So your clients are never like, I loved my divorce
Right.
attorney. She was
No, of
wonderful.
course not.
And criminal clients, when they're coming to you, they are at the end of their rope. They have to be coming to you. They need you, and it's a desperate situation.
Yeah.
So if you can help them, then great. If you can't, then a lot of times the outcome's upsetting.
Yeah.
In estate planning, the people who are coming to you are hopeful. They're excited about their futures, and they feel like they have something that they want to protect and share with people that they love. And that is so rewarding to me, to be part of somebody's journey to better themselves and do better for their families. And I haven't had that in any other area of law.
Boy, you should come work for us, Allie. You really, really do a great job just sharing the themes that we share at 2HLL. What do you think about the community? How has the community been helpful? Which is now we've got about 550 lawyers in the course.
Uh, I I love that. First off, I say that sometimes. I will say like, oh, I work with a collective. Oh, by the way, thank you.
Yes.
With a collective of attorneys that's about 600 strong across the country. So if somebody asked me about some crypto planning, and I said, I have no idea, but I know who I can ask, and I'll take it to my community. And yeah, that's what I told him. And he was like, oh, great. He wasn't like, I'm shopping somewhere else. He was like, great, let me know when you hear back.
They
So
understand. You're not going to have all of the answers, but yes, if you can, you just say, just like you said, I'm a part of a community. I've got a lot of support, a lot of resources, and I'll research that. And then here's the key: go research it and get back to them within, if you can, 24 hours. If it's not that hard of a problem, I just go and figure out the answer. And then you look like a rock star giving them an answer less than 24 hours later. So
right,
you show
right.
that you follow up on what you don't know in the beginning.
Speaking of which, I should probably
Yeah.
email Casey or
And
Laney
if you
today.
don't, not the end of the world, but right, it's an opportunity for you to be like, let me look into that. And then you do go look into it and get back to
Yeah,
them, and
yeah.
you follow through.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to share is that after Momentum calls on Tuesdays, some of my cohort members and I, we have accountability, which is a call that's immediately after Momentum, that we
Nice.
sit and do accountability for an hour on Tuesdays, and just shadow, just whatever the other person's doing. We share what it is, and then at the end report back our progress. And we've been doing that for a couple weeks now. And now I saw today there's an official call for the cohort
Yes. We're
hosted
adding it
on
in
Mondays.
Mondays,
Yeah.
accountability. So yes, come to those.
Yeah, I love it. So the more accountability, the better.
That's what we've learned. Like in the beginning, 3.5 years ago when we started this, it was just, I think, probably a fire hose of content. And then we were like, no, people need the content, but they really need the community. It's probably what I'm most proud of at 2HLL, because the content is great and I'm very proud of what we offer. But it is kind of out there. Like there's not that much that we teach that you couldn't probably find off of YouTube, but really it's the putting it all together and then having a community of people as your course correcting. I think that makes it so valuable, because it's not just the modules, it's the people.
uh, uh, some of my first baby boomer era clients, immediately came to me and said, you know, we saved all this money together and I don't want the pool boy to get it. And so we're in Q-tip territory right off the bat. And, but then they're talking about, you know, I was learning about kind of the seesaw of, you know, control and protection. And so I started messaging Lainey, and she said, give me 15 minutes, I'll be on a call with you. And then I was on my way to the meeting and I was listening to the session that was going on with KC. And KC said, oh, Allie, you're on? I thought you were at your design meeting. Here, I have an answer for your question. And I didn't even know she knew that I had a question because I hadn't talked to
Yes.
her yet.
Oh, she knew because behind the scenes, we were all like, Allie's on her way to a meeting. She has a question. Who can stop what they're doing and help her?
The fact
That's
that
why the whole team knew.
there's 600 attorneys in the group and you can still get that sort of individualized attention on a single client issue.
Yeah.
That's no, nobody provides that. Firms don't provide that. It's just,
No.
that's not out there. That's not on YouTube. You can't find that.
It's why we're keeping, thank you, by the way. It's not on YouTube. I like that. Yeah, it's one of the reasons we're keeping the community somewhat small-ish. Because we know, I know, Casey knows, and Lainey knows, there's nothing worse than when you're on your way to a client meeting and you're like, oh crap, I don't really feel like I have what I need. Who can help me? You know, like that's a
Yeah.
problem. So yeah, we want to make sure that we can, you know, support these little fires as they happen.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How did you know that this was going to work? Because I feel like you had to have known what to collect and kind of set aside and parcel out to share with people. The way that it's set up, it feels like it was very intentional from the start. How did you know that it was going to work?
I didn't know, you'll 2HLL, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that it was going to work, but I did know that it was working. What I was doing in my own New York City firm was working really well, and it was working really well. And that's exactly what I teach in the course. And then you know, everything turned virtual during COVID. And so I really initially sold to HLL as, oh, did you know that you can do estate planning virtually? And it was kind of the virtual thing was the hook. Well, now virtual, everyone's virtual. But what I realized, I got people in, you know, because they wanted to learn how to do it virtually. And then I realized, oh, my whole system actually works really, really well. But it wasn't easy, Allie. It's hard getting the word out. I started with one client, Erin. She's in our program. She's in Maine. And 3.5 years ago, we started working together. It was just the two of us. It was just like you and I are talking. And what happens is you start to see results. And this is what you're going to learn as an estate planning attorney. And it's something I learned a few years ago when I started getting into all of this. People will pay for results. It's the only thing they'll pay for. So if you're able to get people the result that they want, in this case, an estate planning practice that they can, you know, at least get started. If you're able to get your clients the result that they want, people will pay for that, right? But you have to be able to deliver. So I think I knew that because what I was doing in my own firm worked really well, I had a feeling I'd be able to teach it, but I didn't know it would do this well. But I'm super happy.
Well, so am I. I feel like I I didn't even know it was out there, you know, like I didn't even know that this type of practice was out there or that I would ever have any interest in estate planning. I'd
Yes.
never had any interest in estate planning. But had I not come across this course, I feel like I would be moving in a completely different direction, one that would not be right for me or for my family. You know, at this point, all I'm doing is just adding income. I'm just adding income, doing something that I love to do. And it's at this point still a side hustle, but
Not much
obviously,
longer.
no, it wouldn't have to be probably now. I think I could probably make the full switch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that you said that you didn't necessarily think of estate planning. Some lawyers are a little bit hesitant, I think, to do this practice area because they think that you have to have a CPA, which of course you don't. You know, I have my CPA, but they don't teach you anything about the estate planning on the CPA exam. You don't have to be a math wizard. You don't have to be a financial wizard. If you're doing taxable estates, which there aren't that many today, but if you're, then that's a different story. But a lot of estate planning, you just need to have a basic understanding of, you know, the different financial products and whatnot. So don't look away because of the numbers, because I think what you're going to get at, Allie, is the same thing that I get at, which is like, this is, you're helping families. You get hugs at the end. So don't let the math, you know, ruin the hugs at the end.
Right. Right. Yeah. I'm seeing moms at the daycare who are like, oh, here's my child that we talked about in my estate planning, like here's little Susie, and like, oh, hi, little Susie. Like they want to introduce me to their kids because they feel like I helped their kids. And
And
that
you
feels,
did help their kids.
it's rewarding. It really
It's
is.
rewarding. Yeah, yeah, that's great. Anything else you want to share with us, Allie? This has been so much fun. You're such a shiny star in our community. I'm just looking at my notes here. What did we miss?
So am I. The thing that I would say that was probably helped me focus the most and really determine how this was going to look for me, like how the entire business model was going to look for me, was that I branded right off the bat. I branded immediately. I said, who am I? Who will listen to me? Who do I understand? And I realized that it was exactly the community that I'm in. It's me, it's millennial moms, it's my neighbors. So I think for anybody who's coming into this, the first thing that you should do is think, who do I have around me that will want to communicate with me about this? Who will listen to me about this? And a lot of people think that they're going to go into older generations, and that may not be the right path for everybody. I think that really taking a look at the things that would be attractive to my peers, and then honing in on those things, focusing on those, adapting my website to look like that, my professional look to look like that, to make sure that I'm branding myself in a way that they can identify with. That has helped me make so many decisions much, much easier because I had a path already in my head.
Yes. Yeah, and you can start to think about who you want to serve. And the irony is that one of the nice things about working with either young families or, single people who are not, in their 80s, or just business owners, is that they tend to think of estate planning less as, oh, I'm at the end of my life and these are the things, but more just like you said, an opportunity. I'm building a family, I'm building a business. This is about protecting those things. It's an
Absolutely.
opportunity. And so once people start to see it as an opportunity, then they start to see you differently. You're not just someone who's trying to sell them into something. You're there to help protect what they're building. And hopefully for another 50 years, it'll still be there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with professionals in other fields who have the same demographic in mind, I
Mhm.
think is important. Hosting seminars with CPAs, hosting seminars with financial planners, who have the same demographic that they want to serve.
Yes.
You can pack a room.
You can pack a room. Yeah. Make your life easier, not harder. Team up, get out there. Thank you, Allie. I'm so appreciative of the time that you spent. And if we're going to put this up on YouTube, so tell us, if you want to, the name of your firm, the address, and what state you work with, what state you're in.
My name is Allie Jones. I'm the founder of Warner Law LLC. I am based out of Covington, Kentucky, and I serve Kentucky and Ohio.
Wonderful. We'll drop your link into the chat. Thank you so much, Allie. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.